Welcome back to the Hodgypodgy podcast. I'm your host, as always, Lauren Strati. Today is, of course, our Menagerie Monday, our Monday fun day. The day where we try to make it more fun than it actually is. But I still try my very best to help you with your week. Have the week be a little lighter, a little brighter. So today we are going to talk about something that we all love, that we all loved when we think about the past, and that is food, and that is drinks. We're going to be talking about the foods and drinks of the past that have been discontinued, that they have taken away from us, that are no longer with us. R.I.P. We're going to talk about why some of them are gone. I don't understand why some of them are gone. I'm still upset about a few of them. You'll find out. I want to know also which ones you are upset about being gone. Which ones do you wish they brought back? Or have you tried some of the ones that they've brought back and not liked them and remember them tasting different? And do we think that they taste different now because our taste buds have matured? Or have they changed the formula and the recipe so much that it's not the same thing that we remember and loved as a kid? I want to know what you think. Send me a message letting me know what foods and drinks you love that are no longer with us, if you've tried, and if you've tried any of the ones that they've brought back. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to start with one of my favorites. I'm going to start with a few of my favorites. But first one that I wish they would bring back, they would probably ruin it if they did. I think they did. They did bring it back, but it didn't taste the same. That is Rice Krispie Treats cereal. If you remember, it's like what it said. It was Rice Krispie Treats as a cereal. And it was so good, especially when you got like the big chunk of treat, and it was amazing because it was a cereal, but it felt like dessert at the same time. These, and you could say, well, can't you just go to the store and buy the Rice Krispie Treats that are already, and just tear up the squares and put them in a bowl with some milk? No, dude, you can't do that. It's not the same. Those are garbage. The ones at the store, not the same as the cereal from the 90s. They don't taste the same. It's not the same. But, which is the problem. So they wanted to, this cereal is very popular. I hope that you guys remember it. But they were trying to push healthier alternatives. So obviously saying Rice Krispie Treats as a cereal isn't going to go well for health. Whatever. But it was a big hit. They decided to go a healthier direction and take them away. They did reintroduce them for a brief period in 2019. But many fans claimed it didn't taste the same. Because that's what they do. They bring it back, but they don't taste the same. It doesn't taste the same. So that was one thing I really wish they would bring back, the OG recipe, even if it's just for a limited time, so we could all enjoy it for a little bit, see if it really tasted as good as we remember. But we'll see. There was Oreo Fudgies. Do you guys remember Oreo Fudgies? I feel like not a lot of people remember Oreo Fudgies. They were shaped like this, like ovally. The chocolate, they had chocolate in the middle, hence the fudgy name. But the chocolate was thinner. So it wasn't like the double stuff where it was a bunch of the white in the middle. But it was just a nice little chocolate layer. My husband and I, we would plow through sleeves of those fudgies all the time. We absolutely loved them. And then they were gone. Poof. We tried to find them at the store and they weren't there. And they tried like the round chocolate versions, not the same because it's too much chocolate. They claim that they discontinued them because they were trying to introduce other flavors and the declining sales, which is what they say for a lot of these products. But doing the research, a lot of these products were really, really popular and a lot of people want them back. So I'm not sure if that's something that they just said just to get people off their backs. if there's another reason, but who knows. There was another one another snack. I snacked a lot as a kid. That was what my mom kept the pantry full, so I'd be entertained with snacks when I was home alone. And I think that might be why a lot of us millennials and Gen Xers, when we think about these foods, we get those memories of freedom, and because a lot of us stayed home by ourselves. We walked ourselves to school, walked home, we're home for hours. Summertime, it was just us. While our parents were at work, I was alone a lot. So my mom needed to make sure I had plenty of snacks. And one of those snacks, when I was little, I remember loving these so much, were the dinosaur-shaped cinnamon graham crackers. They were in, I think, a red box, and we would always get them at Long's. But they tasted way better than any other cinnamon graham cracker I ever had. They just had this special taste to them. And they created them because of Jurassic Park that came out in 1993. And they were very popular, but they discontinued them like many other niche snacks of the decade due to shifts in consumer trends and grocery store shelf space limitation. There's always room for dinosaur-shaped cinnamon graham crackers, people. Always. But I'm not bitter about it at all, and I don't long for them most days. But another one that I remember, which is funny. It's funny how the memory works, because I was researching these Pop-Tart bites, and I was like, oh, the Pop-Tart cereal. But I was thinking, the more I thought about it, I don't remember ever eating Pop-Tart cereal at all. I remember taking them out of a bag and sticking them directly into my mouth. But apparently they had Pop-Tart cereal, and the more research I did, I was right. I thought it was just, maybe I just ate it out of the box and it was cereal, but there was actually Pop-Tart bites, and which they've brought back, but they were introduced in 1994 as smaller bite-size Pop-Tarts. And they were delicious. I loved them. I loved Pop-Tarts. Listen, it was the 90s. We ate a lot of junk food. My mom was a single mom, just trying to survive and feed her kids with what she could afford. And a lot of it was snacky, artificial stuff. But I remember loving every bit of it and it being delicious. Pop-Tart bites included. So they actually reintroduced them in 2011 with a new formula and packaging. Currently available in stores. I checked, Walmart does have them, and they have the cereal. So if you want to taste them and see how they taste now, I think they have the strawberry and the chocolate fudge, and they might have the cinnamon. So if you want to go to Walmart seems to have a lot of the stuff that they've brought back. So that is one of those where you may want to try it. I don't know if I want to try it, but if you want to try it, let me know. Then there was Jell-O pudding pops. I vaguely remember those. My sister mentioned those as something that we used to eat. And they're creamy frozen treats that were a childhood staple in the 80s and 90s. Obviously tasting like pudding that was frozen, which does sound quite delicious. But I can't quite remember them. I remember the Flintstone push pops more than anything. Like after swimming in the long day of in the pool and in the sun, we would just get one of those in the orange flavor. And I remember Fred Flintstone's face on there. Absolutely loved those. It was a summertime must have, besides like running out to the ice cream truck. But also remember those. Let me know if you guys liked those. That was definitely a favorite of mine. Let's see. We're going to go to... Oh, I don't think I've talked about Kudos bars. Not in this take anyway. But Kudos bars. Do you guys remember Kudos bars? My mom had a membership for... It was called Price Club at the time. Now it's Costco. But she had a membership for Costco, Price Club, whatever. They had the variety pack box. They had the mini M&M one and the peanut butter one, which is so good. I didn't really care for the chocolate chip one too much, but it was like having a candy bar, but they said that it was nutritious, so I loved it. But they took those away. In 2023, they officially said that they were discontinued. So those were a classic thing. My mom would throw in my lunch with my peanut butter and jelly sandwich in my Beauty and the Beast lunchbox. And I had to have a drink. And so what drink did I have? A Squeeze-It, of course. Of course I had to squeeze it. I think they have Kool-Aid ones now, but it's not the same. You gotta have the face on it, and you gotta have the twist top. And it's gotta be a twist top where if you twist it wrong, you get that little tiny piece of plastic that's still there that stabs you. If you don't just go and squeeze it directly into your mouth. But let me know if that's something you remember doing to yourself, because I remember twisting that dang thing off and then trying to drink it, stabbing myself in the lip, going, and then the drink was gone within 3 sips and I wanted more. But those are also gone because of declining sales per usual. That's the normal spiel that they give. But you can apparently get a different version of it in the UK. So if you're in the UK and you're dying for a Squeeze-It, you might be able to find one there. So if you're ever traveling there and you find one, send me a picture. Let me know. There was also, I don't know, and let me know if you drank this, the Orbits. It was like the lava lamp with the little floaty things in it. And it says a strange drink from the 90s that had floating edible balls suspended in liquid. Sounds disgusting, guys. I know there's the boba drink, which gives me anxiety just thinking about drinking those boba drinks with the balls and just it's just, but the thought of drinking something and then having something edible come into your mouth, it just, do you know what I mean? The feeling like I feel like that's not what I'm looking for in my artificially flavored drink. I don't want something edible in it because my brain tells me it's not edible and that there's danger and I want to throw it up. So, but if you liked those drinks, let me know what was so great about them. No desire whatsoever to ever have tried those. So I understand why they were discontinued. A couple of other ones, Altoid Sours. I don't remember those very well. Or 3D Doritos. I remember them coming out with those and vaguely the commercials, but really don't remember those too much. Or Oreos O's cereal. Cereal that turned your milk into cookies and cream flavor. A classic from the 90s. I don't really remember that either. There's a lot of these that they weren't in my pantry or my fridge. But one that was also purchased from Long's was the Planters cheese balls. Those, and I know everybody can feel the rawness of the roof of their mouth just thinking about eating those out of the tub, out of the little metal container, but because they ripped your mouth to bits. But they were so good, and you get like that nice solid coating of orange on your fingers and just go, I know you know. Don't go judging me. I know you know. But they disappeared from shelves for a while. But then they brought them back in 2018 after a 12-year hiatus. Then people go crazy. They sign petitions. They have websites. They do all sorts of things to bring these foods and drinks back. I tried to find them they said that they were back, but I don't think you can get the original ones or ones that they brought back in the 2000s, but I don't think they actually sell them anymore. So, but if you want to spend some extra cash on some cheese balls, look online and you can probably get some for like $30 or something, as opposed to the $2.50 or whatever they were at Long's. But people really do go crazy for these nostalgic foods and drinks. There was even a huge surge of people wanting to bring back the drink surge, which was like, I remember drinking it. I don't really remember the taste. It was lemony, limey, kind of like Mountain Dew. It was basically like Mountain Dew, but they said it had less sugar in it and less calories, I think. But it was marketed towards kids. Their very first commercial was during the Super Bowl. So sales shot up. Everybody wanted to try it, but they realized trying to market such a drink to kids wasn't a good idea. That whole health conscious thing started to happen in the late 90s and 2000s, and so the drink eventually went away. They had a different sales team market it for the last. They had a really good sales team marketing it when it first came out, and then it switched, and whoever did it didn't like the fact that they were marketing it towards children, and so it fell off. But this article said it's fairly common for fans to corral around a beloved discontinued product. The fandom for Surge, though, is cult-like. Would you ever think in a million years that Surge would have a cult-like following? I wouldn't have guessed that. Like I said, I remember going into my friend's garage. She had this whole separate drink refrigerator, and I remember grabbing Surges. I feel like Crystal Pepsi, we'll get to that in a second, and all sorts of delicious, terrible for you drinks. It was the best. But it started as a Facebook, they called it the Surge movement. And it started in 2011, began as a Facebook group, growing to become a major voice in the fight for Surge's return. In order to raise awareness and influence Coca-Cola to reverse its decision, the guerrilla marketing style movement used social media and grassroots approach. Furthermore, the Surge movement actually cared about ensuring it was a profitable decision for Coca-Cola. They even bought a billboard. They said, we couldn't bring Surge back, so we bought this billboard. And they ended up bringing it back for a little bit of time. But then sales supposedly fell off, and now the movement has kind of died down. Or the people have died from drinking it. But now it's not nearly as desired to come back. But I had no idea there was a Surge movement. So that was wild. But speaking of sugary drinks, there was also, my brother-in-law mentioned the drink Jolt. And they said it was like the godfather of energy drinks. It was before Red Bull. It was before any of those. It was Jolt Cola. During the 90s, it was bordering on attaining pop culture icon status. So they mentioned it in movies a few times. It was the drink that the bad guy in Jurassic Park, Dennis, was drinking before he set the virus for Jurassic Park. And then Garth from Wayne's World to mention that I must have drank too much Jolt was what he said. So there's a lot of product placement for that drink. But it was, if you don't remember what it was twice the caffeine of a normal soda. So it was basically an energy drink. It was all the sugar and twice the caffeine. So it quickly carved out a dubious reputation as a heart attack in a can. Marketed to college students and yuppies, it was more of a pioneering energy drink than a soda. So, and per serving, it had 80 milligrams of caffeine, but 100 milligrams of caffeine per can. So, and they marketed it hardcore to computer programmers, college students. They would just live off of that stuff. But eventually, they always issued warnings on the can about the caffeine and everything. But again, as people started to get more health conscious and paid attention to the ingredients more and things, Jolt went away. They always try to bring stuff back, but it never quite stuck. So then we have our classic high C ecto coolers. If you remember the high C juice boxes with Slimer on them, those were the only ones that I loved to drink. They were so good. Bright Green launched in 1987 with a tie-in with the real Ghostbusters cartoon, which we'll have to get into talking about old school cartoons more, because those were just, they don't make them like they used to. They really don't. But they had the Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters cartoon came out, and then it was a lunchbox staple. If it wasn't a Squeeze It, it was a High C Ecto Cooler for me. And it stayed in production until 2001, long after the show ended because of its popularity. It was brought back temporarily in 2016 for the Ghostbusters reboot, which we're going to pretend doesn't exist. But, I mean, that movie was okay. It's just, you can't beat the originals. And you can't beat having them a part of the rebooted with the actual characters that they were. Anyway, that's also a different podcast. I'm going to stay focused on my stuff instead of squirrel. But the fans demanded its return. Its unique color and orange tangerine flavor made it unforgettable. So I still remember it. I absolutely loved it. It just had such a good taste to it. And it was just refreshing. But it's gone now. Maybe they'll bring it back if they do another Ghostbusters movie. Who knows? There's so many different snacks and foods that are gone now. There's ones that probably should stay gone, like Snackwells. I used to love them. But biting into that little hockey puck of chocolate and barely their marshmallow, that it really had like no taste, but it was fat free. And back then we thought fat free was good and not terrible and didn't mean a bunch of chemicals in our food. But it really wasn't good. And we know it wasn't good. But we still ate them and still liked to do the because they were like pillows. So you always had to press them, like with them when you test your tongs. You gotta clickety clink your tongs. You always had to press down on your Snackwells before you ate them, and then drink some water because they were real dry. But there was also Shark Bites, the fruit snacks. Do you remember? They brought them back, but again, not the same. They are more translucent this time. But I think they still have the white ones. That was what I remember whenever I would have those Shark Bites. Everybody would be so excited to get the rare white Shark Bites. But I think I asked my husband if he remembered them, and the only way he remembered them was when I talked about the white ones. And he's like, yeah, now I know what you're talking about. So there are so many different snacks. He wanted me to mention Dunkaroos. They were a defining snack trend of the 90s. Dunkaroos were all about dipping cookies into sugary frosting, which made them feel like a rebellious treat for kids at the time. They were discontinued in the US in 2012, but remained available in Canada. When they were re-released in the US in 2020, they sold out almost immediately. They do, again, have them at Walmart, but they're not the Kangaroos this time. They are a D. Which isn't, again, it's not the same. You gotta have the kangaroo because you gotta do the whole boing, 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 dip, and then eat them. That's what you did. You dunked the roo. It's just a D. You're dunking a D. That's not for snack time, folks. But so I don't know why they changed. Maybe it was easier to produce the D's instead of the kangaroos. But that was the one thing that everybody used to do, would be to hop their kangaroo and dip it and then eat the kangaroo. So then we have, of course, ones I didn't even hear of before, Hershey's Swoops. They were like chocolate Pringles, basically. They were, let's see, let me read here. The company launched Swoops, chip-shaped thin slices of candy, in 2003, flavors like Reese's Almond Joy and York Peppermint Patties, among others, with a jingle that was a riff on tag team songs. Whoop, there it is. The candy came in cups of 6 slices with 3 cups to a package, suggesting the candy was meant to be a small treat on the go. Tell me if you remember the swoops, because I saw that and I was like, why is this a chocolate covered Pringle? I had no idea what it was. So that was definitely a surprise for me. Then there was, like, they always had the pizzeria, some sort of pizza flavored chip or cracker. There was pizzeria pizza chips, and they were shaped like little pizzas. I think I remember them, but we all were obsessed anytime we watched the show. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Garfield, any show on TGIF, they always had some sort of pizza. Like, we didn't stand a chance. You had to like pizza. If you didn't like pizza, you were a weirdo. So of course you have to go after the pizza chips and crackers. So that was another one. I didn't know or didn't remember. I just remember eating whatever. Anytime there was something pizza flavored, that was a snack, I would eat it. But I do remember Munchums. Tell me you remember Munchums. They were crackers. I think they were squares, but like off center, like a rhombus or something, with little ridges, and their ranch flavor. So good. So good. But it was made from Keebler. So it's another delicious salty snack that fell victim to the pivot of Keebler when they went from sweet treats to they started to do salty stuff, and they're like, no, we should stick with the sweet treats. And they got rid of Munchums, but they were thin, crispy crackers. Like I said, ranch was the best. Somebody said the closest you can get to Munchums is Cheez-It Grooves. I'm not going to try Cheez-Its. My husband likes Cheez-Its. I grew up on Cheez-Its as well. Got super sick on them when I was a kid. Can't eat them again. But Munchums, I remember, were so, so good. They had that powdery coating of ranch. And they were delicious. My mom had them in the house all the time. So let's see what else we got here. I'm going to start wrapping it up so I can get to my Mandela effects and see what you guys think. Oh, Butterfinger BBs. Please tell me you remember the Butterfinger BBs. They were the balls of Butterfinger covered in chocolate. And they, of course, did the Bart Simpson commercial with no one better lay a finger on my Butterfinger BBs. And I remember in probably 6th grade when we would get, I can't remember what we got rewarded for, but every person would be able to have a day where they got to do nothing. Like, I got to go in, I was the only one for that week that got to wear my pajamas and eat candy all day and drink whatever I want, bring in my sleeping bag, lay on the floor, and just do whatever while everybody else had to do all their stuff. And I would always have my sour straws and my Butterfinger BBs. Absolutely delicious. I loved them. They got stuck in my teeth like crazy, but I absolutely loved them. They said that they were discontinued, again, because of low sales. Baloney, I say. But there was never a clear-cut answer. Somebody else heard it was because kids were trying to eat them like Bart Simpson from the TV ad, and were choking on them. I don't know how you could choke on the BBs. I mean, they're little balls, but so are like Whoppers, and they didn't discontinue those. Don't quite understand that. What you can choke on, and what I choked on when I was a little kid, Lifesavers. It's funny enough. But I remember, I think it was like a butter rum flavored Lifesaver, and I almost choked to death on it. I was like 3 or 4, and I remember barely making it with that dang Lifesaver in my throat. I think that Butterfinger BBs would dissolve faster than the Lifesaver, and you wouldn't choke on them. So I say bring them back. But that's just me. I loved them. So let's see. Oh, yes. We will get to the Crystal Pepsi. Do you guys remember the Crystal Pepsi or Clear Pepsi? I remember it being called Clear Pepsi more than Crystal Pepsi. But obviously, it was Pepsi that was clear, that didn't have the caramel coloring in it. But I read this article because I couldn't quite remember if it tasted the same or not. So I looked up an article, and this person was not a fan. They said, what is in Crystal Pepsi? My uneducated guess would be poison, crushed up bugs, and baby vomit. But I Googled it just in case to see. Turns out Crystal Pepsi is essentially the same formula as regular Pepsi, just like I said, without the caramel coloring. It was replaced with modified cornstarch. Yummy! Resulting in a beverage that was slightly lower in calories, less sweet, and absolutely disgusting. They also said, what did Crystal Pepsi taste like? Like I said before, absolute garbage. The reality is it tasted like Pepsi that somebody tried to make at home, but they got it kind of wrong. It was the uncanny valley of Pepsi. So clearly not a fan of that. I remember liking it, or maybe I wanted to like it because it was clear and I thought it was cool, but I don't remember. Either way, they tried to bring it back a couple of times, but wasn't quite successful or didn't taste the same. They did a limited run of it in 2022. They brought it back to celebrate the 30-year anniversary, but it's not made available in stores, and I don't think you can get it online anymore. They did also have, and I wonder if they'll bring it back, Pepsi Holiday Spice. There was a lot of fans that loved that, and they were really upset when it disappeared, so I wonder if they'll bring that back maybe this year or something, since nostalgia is really, really coming back. People are really loving the good old days. But I'm going to go through my list real quick, make sure I didn't forget anything that's going to make anybody angry. There's the Rolled Gold Honey Mustard Tiny Pretzel Twists, or Tiny Twist Pretzels. I remember those. I remember loving those. I remember, again, the powder turning my fingers nice and yellow. That good, delicious, powdery flavor that was totally real, not artificial at all. I remember those. Those are gone. But they have tons of other honey mustard flavored pretzel versions of, they've got the sticks and all sorts of stuff. There was also Fruitopia, the drink. I used to get a Fruitopia from the vending machine, I think in junior high, like every single day. That was my routine. And when they were out of my certain flavor or whatever, I was super upset because it was just habit for me to get that dang drink. And I absolutely loved it. So there are a lot of things, and they could say it's because of declining sales, but I think some of it is also people, they're trying to be more health conscious. Obviously, a lot of this stuff isn't healthy. The stuff that was in them, not great, but I don't think anybody was really snacking on some Dunkaroos to make themselves feel strong and get a six-pack. They were just having a snack. And I think that is okay to indulge in stuff every once in a while. If, like, say they brought all of these things back except for the snack wells. But it's okay to indulge in that every once in a while. I think it's more damaging to stress about the food than it is to just eat the food and enjoy it. Like, wow, and you can even, if you were to have like a high C ecto cooler, like, I remember this tasting not like this. This is disgusting. Or you'd be like, man, that was really good. Either way, it's not going to kill you to just have it one time, to just enjoy yourself, to relive that nostalgia. It's totally okay to do that. And I feel like everybody, and don't get me wrong, I used to be one of those people that were super, super stressed about what my kids ate and ingredients this, ingredients that, real food. And I am like that the majority of the time. But I've loosened the reins a little bit because I realized the stress that I was causing myself and my kids over just one meal was crazy. Like, just enjoy yourself, guys. Don't overdo it with any of your snacks. If you want to go out and buy the Pop-Tart bites for me and let me know how they are, that's totally okay. You're not gonna gain 20 pounds by having one small pack of Pop-Tarts. Of the minis. Don't have one whole pack of Pop-Tarts in one sitting, just the bites. But it's okay. And I really wish that they would bring some of these treats back. I don't know. I think my husband's had the Dunkaroos since they brought them back. But I don't know if he likes them the same. Plus, again, they're not the kangaroos. So, I want to know from you guys what... I'm sure I missed something. The list is huge. I couldn't go on forever with all this stuff. But there was also... I will give an honorable mention to the fruit striped gum. I almost forgot to mention it. It's the gum with the zebra on it. My sister used to give it to me all the time when I was a kid. And it was the gum that was so good for the first 10 seconds and then tasted like nothing. But we still chewed it because we loved the coloring. And we could kind of taste it when we like spread it out to try and make bubbles. That never happened. But, that was around for a long time. It was 54 years it was around before it was finally discontinued just this last year. But really, really enjoyed that gum as a kid. Have a lot of good memories of that. So that being said, again, if you can think of anything else I've forgotten, let me know. We'll probably do another episode on food and drinks because there's a lot of food out there and there's a lot of drinks. Whether they've been discontinued or not, like that's what we use to live on and to survive, and that's what we use to some of us to make us feel comfort, sometimes in healthy ways. I'm not encouraging anybody to go crazy and binge on a bunch of stuff, but food stuff like that brings back a lot of good memories. Ooh, just remembered one thing. Sorry if I get really passionate about discontinued food apparently. But I remember, again, let me know if you remember this. The Big Vinny from Round Table. Do you remember the Big Vinny from Round Table? I don't think they have it anymore. But it was this large pepperoni pizza with extra pepperoni on it, and it was only like $10.99 or something. It was super cheap for the time. And I think they had it in the 90s and then brought it back in the 2000s. But I remember getting it for myself. My mom and stepdad were on a cruise. I was like 16. And I ordered a Big Vinny to have by myself with a whole 2-liter of wild cherry Pepsi. And I was just living the freaking dream. That pizza was so good and so cheap that I could afford it on my little ice rink salary. And it was so good. And I don't think they have it anymore. But if they do, I'll have to look it up. But it was from Round Table and it was very, very good. But I think it was one of those things that has disappeared. That's fine though. I don't need to eat the Round Table pizza. But let's get into the Mandela effects. So there are quite a bit of food ones, but it's mostly like spelling differences. Like there was, which I will do one of. But one I'll start with that people thought was a Mandela effect that actually wasn't. And that's the tricky thing about these is you have to make sure that you know that it's a Mandela effect before you go talking about it as one. So cup noodle, the cup with the noodles in it that you put the hot water in that everybody had like one point in their early 20s or late teens when they had no money. That was something that everybody would bring to lunch or bring as a lunch when they were working at when I worked at a bank. That was always something that at least one person had the cup of noodles. But that was actually what it was called, was cup o' noodles. So, and I had this conversation with my husband and he's like, it's always been cup noodle. Like, that sounds so stupid. Like, here's my cup noodle. Like, what? I don't understand what that means. It's cup o' noodles. It's cup of noodles. It's cup of noodles. But they took out the F. It's cup of noodles. And he's like, no, it's always been cup noodles. I'm like, that doesn't, I don't think so. And when I was doing my research for these food Mandela effects, turns out it actually was cup of noodles at the beginning. And they changed it a couple decades ago. And they brought it back temporarily to celebrate the anniversary of cup of noodles. And everybody loved it. And tons of people still, because I've heard in TV shows and I've heard other people call it cup of noodles. And I thought that's just a Mandela effect. But then I actually looked it up and realized it's not. It was just the original name, and then they changed it for some strange reason. And now it's different. But it did actually happen. So then we have, 80% of ramen noodles still call the brand Cup O Noodles instead of Cup Noodles, which has been its official name since 1993. Some say this might be a classic example of the Mandela effect. An unusual, and we already know what Mandela effect is. But it wasn't, that was actually the original name. So I found that to be interesting. There was one thing, though, that I still think is a Mandela effect, and that is the spelling of Oscar Mayer. So like the Oscar Mayer bologna, Oscar Mayer wiener. Now, I wish I had an Oscar Mayer wiener or whatever. Sorry for saying that multiple times. But it's spelled, I always remember it being spelled, my bologna has a first name, it's Oscar. My bologna has a second name, it's Meyer. I always remember that, but it's Mayer, which would be Mayer, like John Mayer, but it's Meyer. It's said like Meyer. I always remember, though, seeing the Wienermobile or whatever it's called with the two E's in Meyer. But apparently it was never that way. It's always been the A. Super weird. I had a couple of people sing that song for me a while ago, and they both said it with the two E's. So they weren't thinking about it. They were just singing the song based off of what they knew. So whether or not you want to believe that one, I firmly believe that's a Mandela effect, and that it used to be E and now it's A for whatever reason. But the one that gets me is Jif versus Jiffy. I remember there being Jiffy peanut butter. And people are insisting that never happened. But there is a whole group of people that remember Jiffy peanut butter. They remember that Jif used to be Jiffy. And there was a guy who found what's called like possible residual evidence of Jiffy. He has this video on YouTube, and he discovered multiple restaurants with a Jiffy burger. So it's a burger with peanut butter on it. And he ended up at a restaurant in Sacramento, which is close to where I live. So and this restaurant is still open. It's called Fanny Ann's, and it's in like downtown Sacramento. He went there randomly with his father-in-law and saw on the menu, it said the Jiffy Burger, and it had the peanut butter jar with Jiffy on it. And he asked the lady, what peanut butter do you use? And she said, oh, we use Jiffy. No way, Skippy. No way, Jif. And he was really fascinated by this because she could not figure out which one. She couldn't settle on which peanut butter it was. So then he decided to research and find all these other restaurants that serve a Jiffy burger. Apparently I didn't realize that multiple places serve Jiffy burgers. So he called all these different restaurants, and the ones that he could get recorded that he could actually play on YouTube, they said Jiffy. Oh, it's Jiffy. We use Jiffy peanut butter. That's just the default. They just remember Jiffy. But it's never, ever been Jiffy. And people say, oh, we're just all misremembering. But why? Or you're confusing it with Skippy. Again, it's like the whole Mr. Peanut and the Monopoly guy. I'm not going to confuse the two. I know the difference between Skippy and Jiffy. I remember, and I loved Jiffy. I remember Jiffy was real good. But he said that every restaurant he called, they all said Jiffy. They never said Skippy. And then there was the choosy moms choose Jiffy, or that was the commercial thing, and that's what people remember, like choosy moms choose Jiffy, but it's always been choosy moms choose Jif. That's got quite the ring to it. Choosy moms choose Jif. No, it's choosy moms choose Jiffy. That's what I remember. So I don't know how many other people remember that or not. Nobody that I have talked to about it remembers that. My husband thinks I'm crazy, but he thinks it's always been Jif. There's never been Jiffy. People say, oh, you're thinking of Jiffy Lube or Jiffy Popcorn or whatever. People know the difference between popcorn, Jiffy Lube, and peanut butter. People know. We're not crazy. We're not stupid. But I digress from that. And I will end with a non-food Mandela effect that still irks me, will always get me, and there's proof that this is actually a Mandela effect. So in the movie Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat says, "We're all mad here," right? That's what everybody remembers. We're all mad here. It was also said in the book by Lewis Carroll, and it says, the quote, "We're all mad here," in chapter 6, where Alice meets the Cheshire Cat. However, in Disney's 1951 animated adaptation, it appears to use the alternative phrase, "Most everyone's mad here." Why? That was not the way it was. It was the same. Nobody read the book. How many people out there that I'm talking to right now have actually read the book Alice in Wonderland? Really? None of us. I would venture a guess that none of you have. So where would we get "we're all mad here" if it didn't exist in the one thing that we would have watched, which is the Disney movie Alice in Wonderland? And I thought that maybe we were misremembering, but last year or the year before, my family and I went to Spirit Halloween store, and up at the front at the counter, they had the Cheshire Cat pin, and it said, "We're all mad here," on the pin. And I took a picture of it, and I have proof that that's what that pin said. Then there's some Etsy. I looked up, there popped up randomly on Etsy. There's a Cheshire Cat, and in his teeth it said, "We're all mad here." Why would we? It doesn't make sense that it was never said, but we're putting it on Etsy stuff, and it's in a pin. It's on a pin in Spirit, and that's what we all remember. It just doesn't make sense that it was "most everyone's mad here." I don't know why. I don't know why they change. I don't know what it is. If you want to call it convergence of timelines or whatever woo-woo stuff, we can get into that stuff later down the road if you want. I'm trying to keep stuff neutral for everybody so everybody can relate to what I'm talking about. I feel like this is something that we all can relate to, remembering hearing the Cheshire Cat say. And again, it's just like the whole Macarena thing. When you hear him say it, it doesn't sound right. Because you're like, it doesn't make sense. It's Wonderland. Everybody's batshit crazy there. You're all mad. You're all crazy. It's not most everyone. It's all y'all. So I'm not sure why that would have been changed, what it means, per usual with Mandela effect. But I digress. So that is going to wrap up this episode. If I got a little excited about the food and drink, it's just because when I talk about that stuff, it reminds me of the good times of my childhood, which it sounds sad. I don't mean it to sound sad, but the foods and snacks and TV shows or movies of those times were the best parts of my childhood because of how my childhood was. So when I talk about those things and I light up and I get all excited about that stuff, it's because those were the good memories that I had. And those are things that we can all relate to, right? There's got to be at least one thing in this pack of foods and drinks I listed that you used to have and enjoy. And that's something that we can relate to. That's something that we can have a conversation about and connect on. And that's why I get all uppity about this stuff, because it's good memories for me and it's something that we can connect on. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. This coming Thursday is going to be a lighter Therapy Thursday episode. After the last few, I figured we could use a lighter, more upbeat one that's not so serious. It still has a really good message, and I think that everybody needs to hear it, because we can get so caught up in all of that stuff that I talk about that we need to remember to stop getting caught up in all of that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I want you guys to tune into it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if there's anything else that you can think of that I forgot to mention in this list, or what you loved about this list. And I will see you on Thursday. Have a good day, guys. I hope you have a great week.